So you've heard about BPA and other endocrine disruptors. Here's an article in the New York Times, an op-ed column just about how it affects all of us, how the hormones are changing male frogs and giving them female organs, the widespread use of BPA, its impact on breast cancer, infertility, low sperm counts, genital deformities, and even diabetes and obesity, early menstruation, you name it. It's everywhere. If you get your blood tested, you're pretty much going to find it. It's in canned foods, gas pumps, ATMs, plastics, food packaging, you name it. And the FDA won't ban it, even though Canada and European countries have. They've said in their public assessments here at FDA.gov that there exist hundreds of different formulations just for BPA containing epoxy linings, and that basically is currently regulated. Manufacturers are not even required to disclose to the FDA the existence or nature of their formulas out of the hundreds of formulas just for BPA, and there's many other types. And that if it were to decide to revoke or change the regulation, it would be a lengthy and difficult process. So basically, they're not going to do it until the last minute when they're totally pressured into it. But even more alarming, just to add on to the problems already existing with this phenol A, is this story out of nature.com about hormone disruptors that rise from the dead in a zombie-like fashion. Broken down pollutants reform in the dark, casting doubt on environmental risk assessments. And they get into this one example of a hormone disruptor used in anabolic steroids for cattle that run off into the water. And they say they thought they were at lower levels because they're broken down by sunlight, supposedly, and they've been doing the test for the levels. Even the environmental watchdogs have been doing the test during the day. But now they've discovered that these endocrine disruptors can regenerate at night, literally returning to life like zombies, and thus these endocrine disruptors can be at far higher levels than they previously thought, according to nature.com. And they mention here again the human health problems, including infertility, various cancers, and so forth. But they thought that concentrations of endocrine disruptors in rivers seemed to be too low to explain the harmful effects on aquatic wildlife, frogs and fish and everything else. And now they know otherwise. They get into this example, as I mentioned, of cattle, of trenbolene acetate, a synthetic anabolic steroid used as a growth promoter in more than 20 million cattle in the U.S., how it's banned in the European Union, and how it's commonly found in agricultural runoff. And if it's happening in the U.S., you can bet it's happening in China and plenty of other locales around the world, even if places like Canada and the European Union are better than those places. And it's involved in skewing sex ratios and decreasing fertility in fish. Of course, that affects the food supplies, and there's these metabolic risks that are otherwise little known. And everybody thought, including the industries and the environmental regulators, that the sunlight was breaking down these disruptors, but not well enough. Meanwhile, there is the EcoWatch call for more than 250 groups joining together to call on the EPA to ban the endocrine disrupting atrazine, and it's a very common herbicide put out by Syngenta, the genetically modified group. And this too is running off from crop pesticide runoff into the water supplies of the U.S., into the rivers, lakes, and streams, and into the soil, all of which affect our environment, our food supply, our very children, and all the animals that everyone loves. Up to 80 million pounds of it are used in the U.S., again, already banned in the European Union. It's contaminating ground, surface, and drinking water. Really scary stuff. How much is this involved in our water supply? Well, I wrote about this back in 2012. Syngenta is one of the many firms that attends Bilderberg, and during the meeting that year when its CEO, Martin Taylor, who's also involved in vaccine companies and Barclays Bank, he was at Bilderberg. At the same time, they were involved in a settlement for a class action lawsuit with 2,000 water districts in the American Midwest because atrazine, the herbicide, had tainted the drinking supply of at least 52 million Americans. They admitted no harm done. The terms of the settlement were not fully disclosed, and it's probably still going on, to be frank. But this just shows you the scale of that contamination, that it's affecting a minimum of 52 million Americans and their drinking supply. I really would urge you to filter your water. But this is a major issue. It's involved in gender bending, it's involved in deformities, a sharp rise in cancer and infertility, endocrine disruptors all over our environment and food supply. Just look out for that, and especially look out for zombie hormone disruptors. I mean, my God. All right, signing off for TrueStreamMedia.com. That's just a quick update on that issue. They need to ban that stuff, that's for sure. I can join in on that one.